Ladies and gents, boys and girls, happy Tuesday, October the 3rd, 2023. Welcome to the Daily Crow. Of course, as always, I'm Chris Phillips, your host of the Daily Crow of the Spurs Up Show. As always, we have a jam-packed show for you guys today. I see John Edward, Jacob, Travi, Ethan K in the comments on YouTube. Also, those in the Big Cock Club Discord, head over to the TDC Questions channel, the TDC Questions channel, to be sure your questions are answered there. Again, guys, a ton to discuss, a ton to get into, and the final TDC of this week, in case you missed it, with the bye week upcoming this weekend. Obviously, guys, still a jam-packed slate of SEC football, so we'll have tons of content throughout the week, dropping game picks, breakdowns, all that good stuff, but there is no Gamecocks football game. So with that being said, we're going to take advantage. We're going to get a little R&R in on the bye week. So there will be no TDC Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, which means there will be no podcast dropping either. We'll return to our normal schedule next week on Monday. And of course, we'll go Monday through Friday, noon to 2 as normal. So this is the final TDC of the week. But with that being said, guys, I got a jam-packed show. We're double dipping with guests yet again in our second hour. We've got Marc Ryan and JC Shurburtt upcoming in that second hour. And of course, guys, in this first hour, it's Tuesday, so we're getting into our SEC Power Rankings. We're also discussing the entire SEC slate this weekend as we do our weekly drive around the SEC. And I go ahead and lock in my picks for every single SEC game this weekend. And again, it's a jam-packed slate: Mizzou, LSU, Texas A&M and Alabama, Ole Miss and Arkansas, Kentucky, Georgia. There's some really, really good games on the slate this weekend. Excuse me. And just excited to discuss each and every single one of those with you. Again, guys, if you want to get your questions in here on this Tuesday, we will take questions via Super Chat on YouTube, or for those in the Big Cock Club Discord. I got a frog in my throat today. Those in the Big Cock Club Discord, you guys can jump in there, leave us a question, and would love to get to your thoughts, your comments, everything else. Outside of that, guys, I'm trying to think. The only other update that I have is if you are planning on, you need some merchandise for the Gamecocks game against Florida next weekend, homecoming, of course, at Williams-Brice Stadium, and needless to say, a huge game for South Carolina. If you order by tomorrow, place your orders on our online store by tomorrow, we can guarantee by kickoff delivery. Now, we will have merchandise available for sale on game day: t-shirts, hats, towels, excuse me, koozies, you name it, whatever, we will have it. So if you'd rather wait till game day, you'll be in Columbia, you want to snag your merchandise, go right ahead, you can do so. But if you're not going to be at the game, or you just, for whatever reason, would rather order online, as long as you get those orders in by tomorrow, I can guarantee that you will have your merchandise for kickoff against the Gators. So again, guys, thank you all so much. Appreciate the love and the support on the merchandise side of the business, the podcast, the live show, all that good stuff. And guys, looking ahead and looking forward to, I should say, the bye week. I think it's much needed at this point for Gamecock Nation, for this football team, of course, but Gamecock Nation as well, after what has felt like somewhat of a tumultuous first 5 weeks of the 2023 season. Guys, that being said, as I mentioned, we do this every single Tuesday, and here we are yet again as I discuss my SEC Power Rankings heading into week 6 of the 2023 college football season. We start at number 14, and a familiar friend down here in the cellar, folks. It is Clark Lee and the Vanderbilt Commodores, suffering a tough loss over the weekend to the Missouri Tigers, really hapless in that ball game. And guys, like I mentioned, Vandy, it's a shame because there was so much offseason momentum. There was so much offseason hype for Clark Lee and his squad. You know, SEC Media Days was in Nashville, home of the Commodores. You beat Kentucky, you beat Florida last year, and you think to yourself, okay, Vandy's going to build on a 5-7 season, 2 SEC wins, and going to come out and maybe challenge to make a bowl game. And you know what? Who knows, right? College football is crazy. And Vandy, guess what? They got Florida this weekend, guys. 18.5-point underdogs in that football game. They've got a chance to make it 2 wins in a row over Billy Napier and the Gators. But realistically, and most likely, what we are seeing from Vanderbilt, it would be nothing short of a minor miracle if Vandy were to go bowling at this point. So unless something crazy happens, guys, unless something crazy takes place, I think we're going to see Vandy in that 14 spot for the remainder of the 2023 season. At number 13, I've got the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Mississippi State sliding down a couple of spots. They got boat raced by Alabama. I don't know what it is for the Alabama matchup, guys, for them, but they really struggle in that. Will Rogers kind of returned back to form, if you will. Had a touchdown pass, but 3 interceptions in that ball game. Woody Marks had a better day, but just 70 yards rushing. But Bama, guys, man, I think it was 31-10 at halftime. Bama was all over Mississippi State in that football game. And I think this is just a team, guys, that, you know what, it's not going to be good enough for State fans because of what they had going with Mike Leach. You know, if Leach would have returned, you've heard Bulldogs fans say this could have been a 9 or a 10-win team or what have you. But realistically, if we're being fair to Zach Arnett, if we're being fair to the transition, if we're being fair to Kevin Barbay, just getting to 6 wins is going to be a success for Mississippi State. And you look at them, guys, you know, I think the beautiful thing about this, on a side note, as we go into week 6, you can see like the picture is starting to clear up and exactly where these teams lie, like the SEC hierarchy, breaking down these power rankings. In the first couple of weeks, we had no idea what to think. We had not been able to learn anything. Slowly but surely, we are learning some things about these football teams. We are learning some things about each of these respective clubs. And I think Mississippi State, guys, because of the transition, because of everything going on, and obviously Will Rogers just really not himself outside of that game against the Gamecocks, a beatdown against the Alabama Crimson Tide on the home field, and Mississippi State sits firmly in that 13 spot. At number 12, I've got the Arkansas Razorbacks, a really tough loss to Texas A&M, guys. I took Arkansas straight up in that game, and I really, really feel for Sam Pittman because with each loss that mounts, and, you know, he's kind of a victim of his own expectations, guys, because each loss that mounts, the pressure turns up on Sam Pittman and that entire coaching staff. But you think about it, guys. You think about what Sam Pittman inherited. I mean, it was a train wreck, right? It was a dumpster fire. He comes in there. They win a couple of SEC games in 2020. You know, that felt like for them winning the Super Bowl, right? They hadn't won an SEC game in forever. Then he goes and wins 9 games in year 2, right? And sets this crazy expectation level of we got to get back to 9 wins. We got to be kind of what Shane Beamer's running to, if we want to be honest with ourselves. But won 9 games in year 2. Disappointing year last year, going 6-6. And now you're reeling a bit, right? Losing 3 games in a row. Arkansas has got to get it turned around quickly, but they've got some major issues on that football team. Guys, I mean, you think about it. We talked all offseason, the best quarterback, running back duo in the SEC. They can't even run the football right now, guys. They can't even run the football. For whatever reasons that are beyond me, they're having trouble getting Rocket Sanders going, and that's such a huge part of that football team, man. If they can't get him trucking, if you will, it's going to be really tough sledding the rest of the way. And I think Arkansas is a team, not just a team, but a program right now in a fan base in somewhat a disarray. Arkansas in the 12 spot. At number 11, I've got the Auburn Tigers. And I'll say this because some were saying, how can you not move Auburn up further because of the heroic effort against Georgia? Guys, I think what you saw, and that was a great effort, by the way. And I think Hugh Freeze, guys, I'm very bullish on what Hugh Freeze is building on the Plains. I think he's going to have Auburn contending sooner rather than later in the SEC West. I mean, Hugh Freeze has won everywhere he has been. And he is willing to bend the rules a bit and do what is necessary and do what it takes to win football games. And that's something, you know what? I'll tip my cap to it. Because as we've seen, guys, at the end of the day, it's winning and losing, and that's all that matters. But when I look at Auburn, I think, guys, realistically, you know, I think that's a game in which Auburn, you know, played above their talent level, no doubt. I think in a rivalry game, the emotions of being at Jordan-Hare certainly propelled them in that football game. Is that who Auburn really is on a week-in, week-out basis? I don't think so. I don't think they're only 7 points worse than Georgia. I don't think they should be vaulted in the top half of the league because they played Georgia close. Now, if we see Auburn build off that loss and put it together and start to get on a roll, well, then they'll move up. But right now, and especially because of the struggles at quarterback, it's just you can only work around that for so long. Because the reality is, Peyton Thorne is still not anything close to an elite thrower of the football, right? They're going to have to win with running game. They're going to have to be creative. They're going to have to win with defense. I got to see more from Auburn until they make a huge jump, but very encouraging signs against Georgia. But I got them 11th in the Week 6 SEC Power Rankings. At number 10, I've got the South Carolina Gamecocks dropping 2 spots after a really, really tough loss to Tennessee over the weekend. And guys, South Carolina, like I mentioned, the picture begins to clear up as we get deeper into this 2023 football season. I'm not completely mailing it as the Gamecocks head into the bye week. I've been talking about this all week, that I feel like I've been somewhat surprised by the energy from Gamecock Nation. Because 2-3 is exactly where I expected South Carolina to be at this point. Granted, it's happened a little bit differently, right? I had the win over UNC and the loss to Mississippi State, so you flip those 2 results. But outside of that, guys, I even picked a 17-point loss to Tennessee, over the offseason when I locked in my picks over the summer. Carolina loses by 21. Never did I expect South Carolina fans to be going into the bye week questioning Shane Beamer as the leader of this football team and this football program for the long run. Never did I thought that'd be the case. Yet, here we are. Let me inject some perspective, guys. There are 7 more games left. 5 of those 7 are at Williams-Brice Stadium. And guys, we have seen the Gamecocks be just a completely different football team at home versus away. And there was a pivotal game upcoming after the bye week against Florida. And if that game goes awry, we will be having a much different conversation, guaranteed. But the season is not over. I say 7 wins are still in play for South Carolina. I think the 7-5 that I picked is still on the table. I think 8-4 might be a little bit aggressive, which is why I labeled 8-4 as my best case scenario for Gamecocks football heading into this season. But 7 wins is still in play. And with all things considered, the deficiencies on this football team, I think 7 wins, guys, it wouldn't be a massive success, but all things considered, I don't know how you could turn your nose up at it. But this is where South Carolina football is right now. Number 10 in the SEC Power Rankings. And it feels as if this is, until things change drastically, where the Gamecocks will rest the majority of this season. I put the Gamecocks ahead of teams like at Auburn, for example, simply because of quarterback play. You still have Spencer Rattler. And on nights when the offensive line can even just somewhat decently hold their own, the offense is going to have a big night. But I view Carolina, guys, as one of those middle-of-the-pack, inconsistent SEC football teams. So the game against Tennessee is not going to define this bunch. And there's going to be much, much better days, right, guys? On days when the Gamecocks play their best, hey, really good things are going to happen. On days when the Gamecocks play their A game, they can go out there and beat anybody. On days when the Gamecocks play their C or D game, they can lose to anybody. That's what you've seen at this point in the season. South Carolina football sort of is what it is right now heading into the bye week. A one-man team, shoddy on both lines of scrimmage, a below-average defense, and great special teams. And you just hope that Beamer ball magic shows itself in the final 7 weeks. Number 10 in the power rankings, where South Carolina rests this week. At number 9, I've got the Florida Gators. And let me go ahead and get out ahead of this. The reason Florida's ahead of South Carolina Guys, even though Florida got embarrassed at Kentucky, South Carolina also got blown out. And Florida, to this point, has a better win on their resume than South Carolina has right now. That win against Tennessee is better than any win South Carolina has. Guys, the Gamecocks have 2 wins right now. Furman, throw it out, and Mississippi State, who is the second worst team in the SEC. I'm not saying Florida's a great football team, and this will be settled on the field in just under 2 weeks. And it was an embarrassing loss, no doubt, in Lexington against Kentucky. I mean, the Gators got bullied, guys. They got pushed around from the jump. It was 14-0 before you could blink. Ray Davis, if they haven't given him a key to the city yet, they should, because he owns the city of Gainesville at this point. But I have Florida 1 spot ahead of South Carolina just because at this point, I'd argue the resume is better. I'd argue the resume is better. So Florida at number 9. At number 8, I've got the Tennessee Volunteers, who slide up a couple of spots. I thought Tennessee, guys, I think the demise of Tennessee was written far too early. I think you look at Tennessee, guys, they're an imperfect football team, right? Joe Milton's not Hendon Hooker. We all know that. Tennessee defensively, I think still you could argue maybe they have some issues here and there, but I like that Tennessee front 7. I like that Tennessee running game. I think Joe Milton does enough in the passing game. Obviously, the injury to Brew McCoy is a big one, and it's really unfortunate. Wonder how they're going to bounce back from that. But, guys, this is a Josh Heupel coach football team, and they're going to score a lot of points. They're going to give defenses a lot of headaches. And is Tennessee going to finish 7-5? Are they going to finish 8-4? They're going to finish 9-3. I have no idea. But I do think the demise of Tennessee was written well before it should have been. I think now you look at it and say, you know what, that loss to Florida, there's just demons for Tennessee football in the swamp. I mean, that's what you have to write it off to, right? I don't know that Tennessee's as bad as we saw against the Florida Gators. I thought they flexed their muscles against South Carolina, and Tennessee is still one of those teams vying for second best in the SEC East, and they're ahead of South Carolina football, not just this year, but as a program as well. So Tennessee jumps up a couple spots, number 8 in our power rankings this week. At number 7, the top half of the league, I've got the LSU Tigers. What a fall from grace. I mean, really, truly, guys, when you looked at LSU over the summer and the preseason, all the pieces there, what happened to their defense against Ole Miss is inexcusable. Just flat out inexcusable. I mean, Ole Miss blew LSU off the line of scrimmage. We're talking about an Ole Miss football team got pushed around by Tulane. What happened to Mekhi Wingo? What happened to Mason Smith? What happened to Harold Perkins? Where is the push? Where is the fundamentals? Where is the tackling? And offensively, I mean, LSU's doing everything you could ask for. LSU fans are arguing this is the second best offense in school history behind Joe Burrow and his group back in 2019. And it's going to be wasted because you can't play defense. I was stunned to see that result in Oxford. Really, truly, guys, when you look at the talent, I know LSU had some question marks in regards to the secondary and holes in the back end of the defense, but it just doesn't make sense, man. It just doesn't make sense. And now they face a really, really tough task going to Como this weekend, taking on a red-hot Missouri Tigers team. You lose that one, and it's crazy to think, guys, but believe it or not, LSU fans are saying, well, maybe Brian Kelly ain't all that. Just in year 2, man. Welcome to the world of coaching in the SEC. When you get paid the big bucks, you take the big-time pressure on as well. At number 6, guys, I've got the Texas A&M Aggies. A big win for them over Arkansas. I thought a somewhat dominating performance, that defensive front, one of the best in the SEC. Max Johnson, I thought, looked like the savvy veteran you'd expect him to be. The offensive weapons for A&M. The big test, though, comes this weekend, right? That game in College Station against Alabama. This will be the one. I mean, this is why Jimbo Fisher was brought to College Station, right? All due respect, he wasn't brought to College Station to beat Miami. He wasn't brought to College Station to beat Arkansas. He was brought to College Station to beat Nick Saban, the Alabama Crimson Tide, to go and compete and win a SEC West. And, guys, Texas A&M is still right there in the fold. Miami doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things in regards to, in regards to the SEC race. Doesn't matter, right? It's a non-conference loss. Who cares? Getting the Crimson Tide at home at Kyle Field. It's a huge, huge game for Jimbo Fisher, man. More on that later, obviously. But Texas A&M at number 6, guys. They jump up a couple of spots. I thought a really impressive performance in a game that I picked Arkansas to win straight up. Like what I saw from Max Johnson at quarterback. I think he's going to be the steady hand they need there. And again, guys, it did not click for Texas A&M against Miami. And I'm not sitting here trying to drink the maroon Kool-Aid, but they got dudes, man. They got studs all over the field, and I thought they showed that in Arlington in that ball game against the Razorbacks. At number 5, how about those Ole Miss Rebels, man? They jumped back up our SEC power rankings. Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin, all they heard all week was can't win the big game, can't win the big game. Lane Kiffin, he can't get it done. And what a performance and what a win as Ole Miss inserts themselves in the SEC West, guys. The SEC West is so incredibly wide open. It is so much fun to watch, man. It is so much freaking fun to watch right now what's happening in the SEC West. But Jackson Dart, that Ole Miss offense, Quinshon Judkins getting going over 170 yards rushing for him. I thought he was fantastic in that ball game. I mean, listen, they didn't play a lick of defense either, but, it feels good to be on the right side of a shootout. And Ole Miss, I thought, what a way to respond after the tough loss at Alabama. Picking up the pieces, a great home crowd at Vaught Hemingway. I think it was a record-setting crowd for those guys. So a huge win for Ole Miss and company, and the one that I think Lane Kiffin absolutely needed to show, hey, we can win the big game here. At number 4, I got the Missouri Tigers, guys. Mizzou just keeps on keeping on, and the big test for them will come this weekend, but guys, we got to start putting some more respect on Missouri, man. 5-0. You look at what Brady Cook's doing right now, guys. Just set the record for consecutive passes without an interception. Brady Cook is cooking, if you will. Luther Burden's turning into one of the best playmakers in the SEC. And then you got that defense, that really stingy, guys, really stingy defense. And when you got that mixture, it's a good spot to be in. Give Eli Drinkwitz credit. Give Mizzou credit, man, the way they're playing right now. They're red hot. And again, I think they deserve more respect. I think Mizzou at this point absolutely deserves more respect than they're getting. They got the big test this week. And, of course, LSU on the home field. Guys, I saw a crazy stat courtesy of our friend Connor O'Gara. Missouri has not beaten a ranked opponent on their home field since 2013. What an opportunity this weekend it is for Mizzou. Because I tell you, if you go out there, if Mizzou goes out there and beats LSU, all of a sudden the Tigers have kicked the door down in regards to announcing, hey, we're for real, we're legitimate. Everybody continues to just wait on the downfall of Missouri football. When is Mizzou going to turn back into what we know them to be? I tell you what, this weekend you could really announce, hey, that old Mizzou is dead and gone, and this new Mizzou is here to stay if you can go out there and get a big-time win over the Bayou Bengals. At number 3, I've got the Kentucky Wildcats. Guys, Kentucky, what a performance. I know Devin Leary continues to be somewhat underwhelming, if you will, but Kentucky is another team. We're talking about Kentucky and Mizzou and the respect factor, and like, bro, Kentucky's a team you got to start looking at and saying, this is a damn good football team. And Kentucky's a team that I bought stock in over the summer, guys, of course, and they've got a huge opportunity this weekend between the hedges against the Georgia Bulldogs to show what they're really made of. But, I mean, that performance against Florida, and I know Florida's not great, but Florida had a damn good defense entering Lexington, and Kentucky embarrassed them. Embarrassed them. Ray Davis, what he did, I mean, that performance was insane. 280 rushing yards, and the majority of those came in the first half of that football game. So, Kentucky's a team right now, and they won that game exactly how Mark Stoops wants to win football games. Hard-nosed, gritty, win at the point of attack, right? Rushing game, stymie you defensively. I mean, they won that exactly how they want to win it. Now, imagine if, and it's an if, but if they get Devin Leary going with that crop of receivers they have and what Ray Davis has turned into, one of the best running backs in the SEC, Kentucky is dangerous, folks. I mean, Kentucky's got a real case right now. Hey, Kentucky and Mizzou have a real case right now that they are the second best team in the SEC East. They have a real case. Both of them have a case to make. At number 2, I've got the Alabama Crimson Tide. Guys, an impressive win over Mississippi State. It feels like Bama starting to find their stride with Jalen Milroe under center. Now, this will be a big test this weekend as they take on Texas A&M. But Jalen Milroe and company, I think you're seeing, obviously, he was the right choice. He was the right guy from the jump. Defensively, they were suffocating against Mississippi State. And, it took a couple of weeks, and there were some tumultuous times, but Bama showing, hey, we still got one of the best rosters in college football. But this weekend, man, what a showdown. What a game in College Station. Nick Saban, Jimbo Fisher. This is a big game for both sides. I know I said it's bigger for Jimbo Fisher, but a huge game for Nick Saban. Guys, if Alabama is to lose Saturday, it would be the first time that Alabama has 2 losses by the month of October since 2007. So, some historical significance in this football game, but I thought, again, Alabama taking care of business at Mississippi State. You put together back-to-back impressive wins. It just feels like the Crimson Tide are starting to figure some things out and hit their stride. I love what I saw on the line of scrimmage as well, really dominating in that win against Mississippi State. And at number 1, guys, I've got the Georgia Bulldogs. And you can kick and scream and bitch and moan and tell me that, hey, Chris, Georgia isn't number 1. They're no good. They're this, they're that, until someone knocks them off the throne. Number 1 is where Georgia shall sit. Bottom line. Was it always pretty? No. Was it ugly at times? Absolutely. But I thought what you saw, Georgia taking down Auburn, guys, when you're on the quest for a national championship, especially a 3rd straight national championship, sometimes you got to win a game like that. You saw Georgia do it last year at Mizzou. You got to win a game like that. You got to tough out a game. Your quarterback's got to grow up in front of your eyes. Your playmakers like Brock Bowers, they got to make plays. Guys, on the road in a rivalry game, we've talked about it all season about how important home field advantage is. I mean, guys, Jordan-Hare is a crazy place to play, man. It is one of the most difficult places to play in college football. And Georgia went in there with all the questions, right? All the question marks, weathered the storm, and still got the W. And that's what championship caliber football teams do. Is Georgia the best team in college football? They may not be. We may get down the road and find out they're not. But until we find that out, until somebody knocks them off, until Georgia loses a football game, guys, they're number 1. And I thought what you saw, I thought it was actually encouraging signs from Georgia. Some folks will look at that. Well, why didn't you win by 21? Guys, we've already talked about this. Style points are out the window in college football this year. With NIL, with the transfer portal, with parity, like there is parity like we've never seen in college football, and it is so healthy for the sport. It's about survive and advance. Style points, I think, are a thing of the past, guys. It is survive and advance. And when you go into a venue like Jordan-Hare and you survive and advance, we should be giving kudos, not poking holes in a big-time road SEC victory. And that's exactly what Georgia accomplished over the weekend. Guys, that being said, let's go ahead and jump into our first break of the day. On the other side, we'll keep the conversation rolling here on this Tuesday. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is brought to you by our friends at Carolina Cigars. Carolina Cigars has been in operation since 2008, recently taken over by the Peterson family in 2020. Whether you're new to the cigar scene or whether you've been enjoying cigars your entire life, Carolina Cigars has the expertise and knowledge to make your visit to their shop enjoyable. Stop by for a fine cigar and experience their classic cigar lounge where people come together, share conversations, and become friends. So if you're into cigars and you're on Hilton Head Island, you really do need to go by and see them. They offer same-day shipping nationwide, free delivery island-wide for weddings and all special occasions. They're also proud to offer premium cigars at 9 outside humidor locations around Hilton Head Island, and they have special events throughout the year as well. They want to talk to you. They want to engage. They want to share with you their cigar selection they're very proud of and their beautiful cigar lounge. When you're in the Low Country, there's only one place for cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, and there's only one place I get my cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, Hilton Head Island's premier cigar merchant. Come and share your passion. It's all here at Carolina Cigars. Give them a follow on Instagram at Carolina_cigars or give them a call today at 843-681-8600. That's 843-681-8600. Smoke them if you got them, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya. The Daily Crow is also brought to you by our friends over at A1 Air Quality Consultants. Headaches, coughing, running nose while in the office or just in your home, call A1 Air Quality Consultants to have your air checked today. From Columbia to Asheville, Anderson to Charlotte, they are your breath of fresh air for all of your air quality needs. Be sure to give them a call or shoot them a text today at 864-619-2092. That's 864-619-2092. You can also contact them via email at a1airqualityconsultants@gmail.com. Be sure to check them out. We thank A1 Air Quality Consultants for their love and support of the Spurs Up Show, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya.
Muscle Dougie, ho.
Ladies and gents, boys and girls, we're back here on this Tuesday, October the 3rd, 2023. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Do not forget, we've got Marc Ryan upcoming at 1 o'clock, and then JC Shurburtt immediately following that. That being said, guys, we got a lot to cram into the next 25 minutes, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. Our drive around the SEC for Week 6, a packed SEC slate in Week 6 of the college football season. And guys, we start in Como. Mizzou, the 21st ranked Missouri Tigers, take on the 23rd ranked LSU Tigers. A noon kick on ESPN. This might turn out to be the game of the day, man. And as we talked earlier, what an opportunity it is for Eli Drinkwitz, for Brian Kelly as well on the LSU side, getting his team to bounce back. You know, he's preaching all week, physicality, not getting blown off the ball, being the more physical football team. Like, you've got the offense. The offense is figured out, but the chess match of that LSU offense against the Missouri defense, which is the strength of their football team, and then you've got Brady Cook and Luther Burden on the Missouri side. They got to be licking their chops, right? And also Nathaniel Pete, Cody Schrader at the running back position. I mean, that offense has got to be licking their chops facing an LSU defense that just got gouged against Ole Miss last week in Oxford. So a game in which, again, LSU needs this one desperately to, I just think, even hold on to the prospects of a good season. I mean, here's the thing. LSU is still in the SEC West race, right? They're still there because they got 2 losses, and, of course, one of them came to Florida State. So just one SEC loss. So LSU can still win the SEC West. But we talked about they were walking a tightrope before, right, to go to the college football playoff, could not lose again. Well, now they're walking a tightrope to compete in the SEC West, because if you drop a second SEC game, you might as well forget it. You can basically just mail it in and play for a nice Florida bowl game. So, and then Missouri on their side, we're talking about who's the second best team in the SEC East. Is it Mizzou? Is it Kentucky? Is it Tennessee? Is it somebody else? What have you? What an opportunity for Eli Drinkwitz and Missouri, and a football program in Mizzou, guys, that just continues to, year after year fight for respect. Even though they've gone to 2 SEC championships, which is more than many teams in the SEC can say, including South Carolina. Like, they have achieved a lot since they've been in the league, but they continue to be viewed as the red-headed stepchild of the SEC for whatever reason. What an opportunity for Brady Cook, Luther Burden, and the Missouri Tigers to kick the door down. Can you imagine, guys, Mizzou moving to 6-0 with a win over LSU? Would be unreal. And that's the opportunity they have this weekend in Como. And like we mentioned before, this will be the first win for Missouri over a ranked opponent at Faurot Field since 2013. So much on the line this weekend, guys. The other noon kickoff this upcoming weekend, Mississippi State takes on Western Michigan in a non-conference game. How about that? There's not many of those still on the schedule. Non-conference matchup, noon kickoff in Starkville on SEC Network. Guys, you really look at this as, again, just a bounce-back opportunity for Mississippi State. Back-to-back SEC losses. 2 really tough games, right, at South Carolina in that environment. And then you turned around and you got rewarded for doing that, for going on the road. You get to take on Alabama at home. So Mississippi State, that offense, Kevin Barbay, they'll get a much-needed breather. Should be an opportunity for Mississippi State and company to build up some confidence and beat up on somebody else, right? That being Western Michigan this week. Guys, 3:30 kick on CBS, arguably the game of the weekend. Texas A&M hosts the 11th-ranked Alabama Crimson Tide. Who needs this one more? Nick Saban or Jimbo Fisher? On the Alabama side, lose this one, and basically all goals you had this year are thrown out the window, right? For Texas A&M, Jimbo Fisher, this is why he was brought to College Station. It wasn't to beat Arkansas. It wasn't to beat Miami or whoever else. It was to beat Nick Saban in Alabama. Guys, we're talking about a program and a fan base that gave Jimbo Fisher a fake national title trophy, right? To, like, basically speak it into existence. This is a massive game for Jimbo. Believe it or not, there's some out there in Texas A&M and Aggie land that are labeling this as a must-win game for him. How does Jalen Milroe fare in a hostile environment? I don't think we've really seen him in a hostile environment yet this season, because the Texas game was at home, right? The Texas game was a home contest. We have not really seen Jalen Milroe in this scenario yet. You might recall it was against Texas A&M last year that he had 2 or 3 turnovers and the question marks about, can he be the guy? It's where they emerged. So for Jalen Milroe, it's a bit of a chance at redemption. For Texas A&M, it's a chance for the Aggies to get a much-needed win and put themselves squarely right into the SEC West title hunt. A huge game. And anytime, guys, A&M and Bama go at it, this series has been so much fun to watch. A&M always, it seems like, shows up for the big game under Jimbo Fisher. This one is going to be a ton of fun at Kyle Field. Florida taking on Vanderbilt, a 4:00 kick on SEC Network in a revenge game against the Commodores. It's not often you call a game against Vandy revenge, but with what Vanderbilt did to Florida last year in Nashville, the upset win for Billy Napier, like, Guys, we talk about must-win games, and this isn't one, this Florida-Vandy game, this isn't one that is going to be at the top of people's radars or people are going to be looking forward to watching Florida-Vandy. Right? Everybody's going to be tuned into A&M Alabama. Nobody's going to be looking at the Florida-Vandy game, but, like, this is a massive game for Billy Napier and company. Gators are an 18.5-point favorite. Vandy has been atrocious to this point. But I tell you what, even if this game is, like, uncomfortably close, with the South Carolina game looming, obviously, at Williams-Brice Stadium, like, I mean, things can get sideways in a hurry if Florida does not get the job done in this one. And I think they need to win this one, guys. I know we talked about there's no such thing as style points, but, like, against Vandy as nearly a 3-touchdown favorite, you need to cover. Like, you need to cover, guys. You need to take care of business in a big way. Like, Florida needs, after a tough loss at Kentucky, they need a confidence-building win, right? They need that win to that feel-good, that get-right game, which is what this game serves as for sure, a get-right game. But we saw last year things don't always go according to plan. So for Billy Napier and company, you just better make sure you show up and you take care of your business. Guys, we keep it moving. Georgia taking on Kentucky, 7 o'clock kick on ESPN. This one's going to be a ton of fun, guys. The number 1 ranked Georgia Bulldogs, the 20th ranked Kentucky Wildcats. Hey, Kentucky, who are you really? Are you a contender or are you a pretender? Hey, Devin Leary, who are you really? Right? Tip of the cap to Kentucky for what they did against the Florida Gators, but nobody thought Florida was a top-tier SEC team. Nobody thought Florida was – I think the most impressive thing Kentucky did was obviously dominating that defense that had been so good. I picked Kentucky to win that football game, though, at home at Kroger Field. Can Ray Davis and that rushing attack, can they have similar success against a really stout Georgia defensive front? Also, can Kentucky take advantage of slow starts that Georgia's had? Guys, Georgia's been outscored, I think it's in the first quarter, 27-17. At this point in the season. Like, at some point, you got to think those slow starts are going to bite Georgia in the rear end, right? At some point, somebody's going to make Georgia pay for slow starts. Could it be the Kentucky Wildcats? Could we see the upset of the college football season to this point? Could the SEC West race get opened wide up because of a Wildcats win? Maybe so. And then for Georgia, how much are you able to build off of that big win on the Plains against Auburn? That's what I want to see. Do they open it up even more for Carson Beck, right? Does the running game finally get going as Georgia gets healthier? Do they start to look more and more and more impressive? Because it's just been this ramp-up period for Georgia to this point. Also, you factor in Kentucky's one of those teams that's played Georgia about as well as anybody in the SEC over the last couple of years because of Mark Stoops and Kentucky's commitment to physicality, winning in the trenches, right? Hard-nosed football, which is what you have to have any shot against the Dogs. Going to be a fun one under the lights at Sanford Stadium. And guys, finally, the 16th ranked Ole Miss Rebels taking on the Arkansas Razorbacks. 7:30 kickoff on the SEC Network yet again in Oxford. Ole Miss looking to build off that big LSU win, and then Arkansas in complete disarray. When I look at this game, it's all about, guys, Ole Miss not having a hangover from the LSU game, right? Like, how you handle success is just as important as how you handle defeat. And so we're going to find out. Has Ole Miss spent the last week reading their press clippings? Everybody's telling us how great we are. We're so good, what have you. Or do we see a locked-in, laser-focused Ole Miss football team ready to get after it? And then Arkansas, guys, what does that team have in the tank, right? Like, what is that football team? I don't want to say that a team has quit going into week 6, but, like, what's in the tank? Do we see any signs of life, an inspirational performance from this Arkansas football team? Or do we see a team that has folded up shop and has quit? Guys, that being said, we keep the conversation rolling. Let's go ahead and get into our SEC picks, my SEC pick'em that we do on a weekly basis, and then we'll take a break, and we'll get into our conversation with our good friend, Marc Ryan, of the Fan Upstate. That being said, guys, this is SEC Pick'em for Week 6 of the 2023 college football season. We start going back to the top of the schedule. Missouri taking on LSU, noon kick on ESPN. LSU is a 6.5-point favorite in this football game. Guys, there is no team I've been more wrong on this season than the Missouri Tigers. I have picked against them damn near every turn. It took me weeks to finally give Eli Drinkwitz and this team the respect they deserve. Brady Cook has turned into one of the better signal callers in the SEC. Luther Burden III, he's one of the most explosive playmakers in the conference. And that defense is a defense that gives you a chance to win every single game you play. That being said, Brian Kelly has been screaming at his ball club all week long. His defense in particular, challenging their manhood, challenging what they are as a football team on the defensive side. Guys like Mason Smith, Mekhi Wingo, Harold Perkins. I think this is going to be a great game, back and forth game. I'm excited to watch this one, guys. I really am. Because it's two teams, a lot on the line. When I look at this game, though, which offense do I trust more? Right? Brady Cook, Luther Burden, or Jaden Daniels, Logan Diggs, and that group of weapons. When it comes down to it, guys, give me LSU. Give me LSU minus 6.5. I'm doing it again. I'm doubting Mizzou again. I can't help myself. I think the Bayou Bengals, after a really tough loss on the road in Oxford, I think they're going to bounce back in this one. I think they're going to edge out Mizzou by a touchdown. I think it's a really good game, but I like LSU to get the straight-up win here. I think Missouri, this is going to be, I think, one of their stiffest tests yet. I think LSU will pass it. I think they will respond to being challenged by Brian Kelly on the physical side of things, the physicality, and I think they win a really, really hard-fought game. Bayou Bengals bounce back in a big way. We go to Starkville, Mississippi State, Western Michigan, SEC Network, a noon kickoff. Guys, I got Mississippi State rolling in this one. I think it's no secret. I think they're going to be able to do whatever they want. I think this is about Will Rogers, that offense, that entire football team really, though, bouncing back, being able to lick their wounds after a really tough last couple of weeks. I think Mississippi State will do so. I think they'll bounce back in big fashion and get a big win over Western Michigan. Guys, we go to College Station, Texas A&M and Alabama. CBS, game of the week, a 3:30 kickoff. And I think Alabama, guys, has the right dude at quarterback. Right, you're seeing that. And also the most encouraging thing from the Mississippi State win, they dominated in the trenches. Both points of attack, they dominated up front, were able to do whatever they wanted to the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Huge game for both sides, right? I mean, it goes without saying. Jimbo Fisher, Nick Saban, what this means, it feels like a must-win for Jimbo. Nick Saban and company, they have not had 2 losses on their record in the month of October since 2007. You might recall, I picked this over the offseason. I picked Texas A&M in the upset victory. And Texas A&M admittedly has not looked like what I thought they'd look like at this point. Heck, Connor Wegman's out for the season. Max Johnson takes over. Can he be the answer against a still really, really talented Crimson Tide defense? This one's a tough one. This one's a coin flip for me. You look at the spread. Bama's a 2.5-point favorite in this game. Guys, I flipped the coin on it. And the coin came up Jimbo Fisher and Texas A&M, because you know what? If there's one thing that Texas A&M does under Jimbo Fisher, they show up for the big game. I think Jimbo Fisher and Texas A&M, I think they show up for this big game. I think it is a must-win for the Aggies, for Jimbo. This is why he was brought here, to win games like this and I think they will get the job done. I think Jalen Milroe was under duress. I think A&M is able to win first downs, get Bama behind the sticks, and force Jalen Milroe to beat them, and I don't think he will be able to do so. I think Texas A&M wins this football game straight up in College Station. Guys, Florida and Vandy, we moved that ball game, 4 o'clock on SEC Network. I do think the Gators, guys, will get their revenge. I think there's some uncomfortable moments early in this football game. I think Vanderbilt will actually make Gator fans squirm a little bit. But I think Florida, a week after they got bullied, they got pushed around, I think that Florida will bounce back in a big way. They're just like South Carolina in a way. They're a different team at home. They're a different team at the Swamp. I think we'll see that yet again. I think Florida gets a much-needed win over the Vanderbilt Commodores and sets the scene for a massive showdown in Columbia in just under 2 weeks. Georgia and Kentucky under the lights at Sanford Stadium, 7 o'clock kick on ESPN. Is Kentucky able to dethrone the back-to-back national champions? Kentucky's played Georgia really well, guys, because of, again, the commitment to physicality. They are willing to get down and get dirty and get in the trenches with Georgia and punch them in the face. Will Georgia have a counterpunch or two? Will Georgia be able to survive another slow start if it happens? And there's nothing that tells us it won't. At some point, that's going to burn Georgia. Getting off to a slow start, it's going to burn Georgia, right? Many folks will look at last week and poke holes in Georgia and say they got problems here, and there. They should have blown out Auburn. I choose to look at Georgia and look at that win and say that was a win where you grow as a football team, where you grow up across the board. Carson Beck, it starts with him, but all across the board as a football team, Georgia grew up. I think this is another hard-fought game. The spread in this game is 14.5. Dogs are favored, of course. I'm not touching the spread in this game. I could see this being a really close affair, but I tell you this, if Kentucky's one-dimensional and Devin Leary can't step up and do anything, Georgia will run away with this football game. Sanford Stadium will be rocking. The Dogs will show up and show out. I think Georgia wins this football game. I don't know if they cover the spread. Depends on what Devin Leary does, but I think Georgia reminds folks yet again why they are number one in the country. And finally, guys, Ole Miss and Arkansas in Oxford, SEC Network, a 7:30 kickoff. The spread in this one's Rebels minus 11.5. I'm taking Ole Miss to win this football game. I think this game, though, is much, much closer than – and I'll tell you this. It would not shock me if Arkansas got the straight-up W. If this was a noon game in Oxford, I'd probably be taking Arkansas. But I think that night game atmosphere at Vaught-Hemingway, guys, that is so valuable in the SEC this year. We have seen it on a week-in, week-out basis. But I think that KJ Jefferson, Rocket Sanders, I think this football team will show up ready to play. I think this team is not going to quit on Sam Pittman. I think the culture behind closed doors is much better than that. I do think, though, Ole Miss found something against LSU with Jackson Dart and then Quinshon Judkins getting the go, and that was the big thing for them, right? I think this is going to be yet another fun game, high-scoring game, just one of those fun, classic SEC West contests, But I do think Ole Miss hangs on. Really, really close win. Really close game. I think the Ole Miss Rebels take down Arkansas and get another huge win under the lights at Vaught-Hemingway Stadium. Guys, that being said, let's go ahead and jump into a quick break. On the other side, we get my good friend, Marc Ryan of the Fan Upstate on the show to talk Gamecocks, SEC, and everything in between. All that and more on the other side. You're tuned in to The Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is brought to you by our friends at Carolina Cigars. Carolina Cigars has been in operation since 2008, recently taken over by the Peterson family in 2020. Whether you're new to the cigar scene or whether you've been enjoying cigars your entire life, Carolina Cigars has the expertise and knowledge to make your visit to their shop enjoyable. Stop by for a fine cigar and experience their classic cigar lounge where people come together, share conversations, and become friends. So if you're into cigars and you're on Hilton Head Island, you really do need to go by and see them. They offer same-day shipping nationwide, free delivery island-wide for weddings and all special occasions. They're also proud to offer premium cigars at 9 outside humidor locations around Hilton Head Island, and they have special events throughout the year as well. They want to talk to you. They want to engage. They want to share with you their cigar selection they're very proud of and their beautiful cigar lounge. When you're in the Low Country, there's only one place for cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, and there's only one place I get my cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, Hilton Head Island's premier cigar merchant. Come and share your passion. It's all here at Carolina Cigars. Give them a follow on Instagram at Carolina_cigars, or give them a call today at 843-681-8600. That's 843-681-8600. Smoke them if you got them, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya. The Daily Crow is also brought to you by our friends over at A1 Air Quality Consultants. Headaches, coughing, running nose while in the office or just in your home, call A1 Air Quality Consultants to have your air checked today. From Columbia to Asheville, Anderson to Charlotte, they are your breath of fresh air for all of your air quality needs. Be sure to give them a call or shoot them a text today at 864-619-2092. That's 864-619-2092. You can also contact them via email at a1airqualityconsultants@gmail.com. Be sure to check them out. We thank A1 Air Quality Consultants for their love and support of the Spurs Up Show, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya.
Muscle Dougie, ho.
Ladies and gents, boys and girls, we're back here on this Tuesday, October the 3rd, 2023. We await our good friend Marc Ryan of the Fan Upstate to join us here on this Tuesday. Guys, thank you all so much for your understanding in regards to how we're shuffling things around this week. Of course, no TDC tomorrow, Thursday, or Friday, as yours truly is getting some R&R in during the bye week, taking some time to chill, relax. Of course, we'll still be active on social media, posting content, all that good stuff. Let me ask y'all this before Marc comes on. I see John Edward commenting, some others. Why are y'all pissed off at Marc Ryan? What did Marc Ryan even say? I really don't. I mean, I saw the tweet about, they're talking about the honeymoon is over and but guys, I got to be honest. I don't see Mark Ryan saying anything that many in this fan base aren't saying. Like, the charge has been led by you all. The charge has been led by Gamecock Nation. So what are we talking about? Like, what is Mark Ryan saying that hasn't already been said? And you all know, I'll call Mark out on a bad take or when he has a take that's controversial or a take that I think is sideways. But I don't even know why people are mad at Mark right now. Like, really? I mean, it's what he's talking about is uncomfortable. But I mean, Gamecock fans have literally been leading this charge. It's why I've been saying I've been surprised since Saturday, the energy on social media. It's so funny, too. We've got folks that are continuing to talk about Tennessee. It was their Super Bowl. And guys, the Tennessee game happened. It's over, whatever. But they had a stuffed chicken Gamecock, Chris. Tell me that's just the next game mentality. Well, Brendan, it wasn't just the next game mentality for South Carolina either, because if it was, people wouldn't be imploding like they are because Carolina lost. I'll tell you this. Listen, 63-38 happened. Gamecock Nation danced on the graves of Tennessee for 9 months. It was fun. It was great. And then guess what happened? Gamecock football, Brendan M., Gamecock fans, you had to pay the piper. You had to pay the piper. You had to pay your dues. That's it. Had to pay your dues. So, and it is what it is, guys. South Carolina fans, if the shoe was on the other foot, would be feeling the same exact way. And now, you're getting people left and right saying, oh, it's South Carolina Super Bowl against Florida. Like, oh, my goodness. Yep. Anyways, guys, we await Mark Ryan to jump on the show. Excited to chat with him. Again, guys, Mark Ryan and then JC Shurburtt. If we don't get Mark here in the next 5 minutes, I might just go ahead and air the JC conversation. We are not the combos with JC, by the way, just side note, will no longer be live because Inside the Gamecocks is now a 3-hour show. Normally we would get JC on at 1:15, but they are now going till 2. So our convos will take place Tuesday morning, and then we'll air those on the show. In the meantime, we can take a couple of questions here. Let's see. Losing stinks. Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. It does stink indeed. It does indeed. I don't know, guys. I always looked at that Tennessee game as a loss. I always looked at it as a loss. Like, I put it as a toss-up out of sheer principle, and because I didn't want to deal with slapdicks telling me all offseason how wrong I was that game should be a toss-up, but that game was never a toss-up. That game was always an L. It was always an L. After South Carolina did what they did to Tennessee last year, that game was never in doubt. Sorry. Hate to tell you. That game was never in doubt. That game was never in doubt. It is what it is. So, hey, we got 63-38, but you got to pay the piper at some point. And night game in Neyland. Makes it difficult. So, okay, we are awaiting Mark Ryan going once, going twice. Haven't even gotten a text back from Mark Ryan. Have not even gotten a text back. I'm sure y'all would be dreadfully upset if Mark Ryan did not show up today. We could just go ahead and air the JC Shurburtt conversation. We could do that, which is something we might just do. And if Mark Ryan can join us later in the show, then cool. And if not, then whatever. It is what it is. So Um, let's see. Yeah, I think Bruce, I see the comment. If I was to be honest with myself, I thought we'd lose. My heart, based on Mississippi State, thought we could win. Um, you know, yeah, I mean, I think I'll just say this from my perspective. From my perspective, I just thought what was surprising is that I picked South Carolina to be 2-3 at this point. I picked a 17-point loss to Tennessee over the offseason. I fully expected Tennessee to cover the spread. I really did. I thought 12 and a half. I thought Tennessee was going to be all over that. Um, and I just that's how I saw it. But I never thought the backlash was coming the way that we've seen. I just never thought it was coming. So guys, that being said, I have no idea where Marc Ryan is. I have not heard from him. So we're going to keep the conversation, going to keep the show rolling. Of course, every single Tuesday, our good friend JC Shurburtt joins the show. We're going to go ahead and jump into that conversation. If we can get Marc Ryan on late, so be it. If not, it is what it is. That being said, guys, sit back, relax, enjoy this conversation with our good friend JC Shurburtt of Inside the Gamecocks of the Big Spur. All right, guys, he joins us every single Tuesday to talk Gamecocks, SEC, everything in between. A ton to discuss here on this Tuesday. Our good friend, JC Shurburtt of Inside the Gamecocks of the Big Spur. He joins the show once again. JC, appreciate you taking the time, my friend. What's going on? How are you?
Yeah, good to be back with you, Chris, here on a Tuesday. Open date, so that's good. There's always lots to dig into during this time.
JC, indeed. And before we look ahead of the open date and the ways it can benefit the Gamecocks, of course, we have to look back at what happened over the weekend in Knoxville at Needland. Let me start, JC, with this because I want to see if you're getting this sense, this feeling, if you will. I've been somewhat surprised. Gamecock Nation never ceases to surprise me. I've been somewhat surprised with the energy, not coming from all, but from some. I feel like a large portion of Gamecock Nation since that loss on Saturday, obviously 41-20 to the Bulls. I know it was ugly. I know there's a lot of things, and we're going to talk about it, things with personnel, play calling, the way it took place. But never, JC, did I imagine that 5 games into year 3, excuse me, of the Shane Beamer era, that we'd be talking about his future in Columbia and trying to determine whether he's the long-term answer. Like, are you surprised at all by the energy from the fan base, or do you think this is just modern day college football where it's a very win now mentality with NIL, transfer portal? Is this just the norm now? Because again, for me, I don't think I saw it coming, JC. I really don't feel like I did.
I mean, it's a surprise. I think a part of it is modern day college football. Obviously, I mean, you see things like Sam Pittman being on the hot seat at Arkansas or whatever. They just poor Pittman. I mean, he's kind of a function of their dumb scheduling. You don't schedule BYU for a home and home. You don't schedule Liberty at home, man. If you're trying to rebuild that thing, and they did it a long time ago before he got there, and they've hit a rut out in Fayetteville. Now, you can ask if he made a mistake, kind of moving away from the Brow style offense or whatever to what the kind of more of a traditional set with KJ Jefferson. But but you hear it about Arkansas. I mean, you hear it about Billy Napier at Florida here in year 2, which would be the worst thing, or year 3. No, 2. It's 2, isn't it, for Napier? Yeah.
You're too.
So it's it'll be the worst thing Florida could possibly do is to pull the trigger. You heard about Brian Kelly at LSU. So does it surprise me that there are some people out there that think, pull the ripcord, the first sign of adversity? No, it doesn't surprise me. But I think most Gamecock fans understand that, hey, look, it's a process. Things have not been going well. Is Shane Beamer perfect? No, he's not. Is there some things you criticize him for? Yes, yes. But so far so good with the overall results. I mean, they've recruited despite having one of the worst, I'm going to say one of the worst, but one of the most lacking, needing to catch up, however you're going to define it, NIL situations in the SEC. They recruited above that. Could be better if they had a better situation there. They've landed 2 out-of-state 5-stars, which doesn't happen often. They beat Tennessee and Clemson last year. They beat Florida as a 20-point underdog the first year, got to a bowl, that kind of thing. And so I think that, when you look at the body of work, first and foremost, it's been sufficient considering where the program was when he took over from a wins and losses standpoint. Number two, I think that obviously September's been a disappointment. Obviously, you have to have that North Carolina game. I mean, North Carolina's really good. They're undefeated. I mean, that's the bottom line. They're in the top 15. Tennessee is a good football team. I think they were kind of predestined to win that Saturday night. And you called it. And I'll tell you, I predicted the Gamecocks to win. I didn't feel it though. So I mean, like last year against A&M, I felt it. I felt like they'd win, but I didn't feel it. But I kind of looked at the matchups and what Tennessee had done so far, and I didn't expect that. But Gamecocks didn't play very well, and the Vols played really well. So that's what happens. So and then the Georgia game. So you're 2 and 3. This was possible. Thank God it wasn't 1 and 4 because that was also possible. And now they just have to go and get better. I mean, this Florida game is as big as it possibly can be. I mean, Florida is not a good football team. I don't care what they did to Tennessee. Talking to some of my Tennessee people, Wes Rucker from Vols 247 was on the show last week. He's convinced they're like gremlins and elves and ghosts and phantoms and all of this stuff in the swamp with Tennessee. Because I think they're kind of miniature elf ghost Spurrier like things. Or, they're going to trip the balls up. Yeah. The leprechauns or something that look like Steve Spurrier. But it's so he's convinced that's a one-off, and that's just something that happens to that program is losing at Florida. And after seeing Florida play Utah and Kentucky on the road, and then struggle with Charlotte, I mean, they're not very good. South Carolina should win that ball game. South Carolina should be a line favorite and win the game. Then you got Missouri. Missouri's off to a hot start right now. You probably don't think Carolina's got a big shot of winning out in Como, but I don't think many people thought Missouri had a big shot of winning in Columbia last year, right? So that thing kind of goes back and forth. And A&M's on a roll. Obviously, we'll find out a lot about them this weekend. So it's not an easy. It wasn't going to be an easy September. It's not an easy October. November, it lightens up a little bit. I mean, as good as Kentucky looked against Florida, I think a lot of people are just taking wins over Florida and jacking teams up because of it. Kentucky plays Georgia this weekend. We'll see. That they'll probably give them a game, but they come to Williams-Brice the last weekend before Clemson. Clemson comes to Williams-Brice. Jacksonville State and Vandy come in. They're the other two, so it lightens up a bit. But you got to find a way to get better. I mean, it's pointless just riding it out, waiting on the schedule to lighten up. And you got to go to win ball games starting next Saturday, and clean some stuff up. Now, in year 3, after getting off to the start that he did, snapping the Clemson streak, all that, is it time to panic and start saying he's not the answer? No. I think there's too much put on coaching these days. A lot of it's about players, man. I mean, everybody's ready to run Mark Kingston out of town, right? Well, he had players this past year, right? And got to the Super Regionals. Now, was that good enough to give him a lifetime contract on the baseball team? And heck no, it's not. I mean, he's got to get back there this year, right? Those are the standards. But, you have to have players. And South Carolina just doesn't have what I would call yet the quality depth to survive injuries. They don't have the players to just kind of sit there and do whatever they want schematically on offense or defense. You have to kind of scheme people up, fool them a little bit, that kind of thing on both sides of the ball. And recruiting takes time. I mean, I've heard people want to fire Lonnie Teasley and all this other stuff, but I mean, if Lonnie Teasley's responsible for recruiting back-to-back 2 of the best classes of offensive linemen I've ever seen come to South Carolina. That's a hard position to get here. I mean, D-line, the Carolinas are loaded with D-line, and there's really no excuse not to be really good at recruiting that position because you just kind of take your share and go. But offensive line, man, I mean, these guys, are all going to be really, really good. So is Lenore Sellers. So are a lot of the young receivers. So are a lot of young defensive backs. And I think whereas several years ago you'd have kind of a young team with promising freshmen, and there was a little bit of patience from fans. There's just not anymore. And look, you guys want to know why they didn't go sign a bunch of guys out of the portal? It's NIL. I mean, that's why. NIL impacts portal recruiting, or impacted it this past year. I think it's coming in high school, by the way, which is unfortunate, and that's a different subject. But it impacted portal recruiting tremendously. So that's the thing. I mean, that has to get right, so they can get players in, and hopefully this next portal haul is better than the last, and they have some resources to go attack it. But now as far as like questioning Shane Beamer right now, I think, hey, look, it's not, it does nobody any good. We're 1 month into a season that could end up. I mean, if you look at the track record, he usually kind of turns it around, almost surprisingly. So, you just got to kind of hang in there right now. You've lost to 3 good teams, and in an unfortunate manner in Knoxville Saturday night. But you got to just stick with it. It doesn't. You're never going to win if at the first sign of adversity. And football teams don't do this, Chris. No good. There's 0 good football teams, and I'm just talking players, coaches, that when adversity hits, they're just like, oh, we just need to blow it up and start over. And winning fan bases, as passionate as they are, and as much as they like talk about wanting to fire somebody after the game or whatever, programs that operate in that manner are never going to get any traction and never going to win, especially when you don't have a brand name behind you. But like look at Florida. They have they have every brand name in the world behind. I mean, they're one of the biggest brands of college football, and they keep changing coaches every 3 years. You wait, they're gonna get further and further behind. So that's right now not the answer. There's not a there's not a hey, he needs to be fired kind of thing. Now, sometimes if you have a disastrous season, and it's like, we've lost all momentum here, then yeah, maybe you do pull the trigger quick. But we're not at that point yet, Chris. It's a 2-3 football team that's had some unfortunate losses, that needs to get better in a lot of areas. It's had some misfortune on the injury front, and they need to, probably examine some things with what they're doing and try to move forward from there, starting next Saturday.
And to your point, JC, just looking back, I picked South Carolina to be 2-3 at this point, but still finish 7-5, potentially 8-4. I had 7-5 with a loss in that Clemson game, and Clemson looks nowhere near what I thought they would be this year. So it's still very much on the table. I don't think writing off South Carolina to a 4-8 season right now. I think you haven't been watching enough of Shane Beamer and what they've done in his first 2 years if you think they're just going to be down and out and dead. And I mean, we've all seen this, felt this before in each of the first 2 seasons. And it seemed when they get to that point, that's when they start playing their best football, turn it around. So there's still a lot to play for with 7 games to go. Obviously, that goes without saying. JC, let's look at that game on Saturday night, though, because with that being said, there is a lot to dissect, to break down, and you talked about schematically. I felt like this was the first game to where, through 4 games, I think Dowell Loggins had gotten the seal of approval. There was really no banter, no debate regarding that. Even UNC, you looked at it, hey, the offensive line didn't give you time to operate. You couldn't do anything about it. I felt like this was the first time, JC, really both sides of the football, by the way, where the schematics were questioned. But let's start offensively. Spencer Rattler is under duress all night. He threw the bad pick 6, which I think you could even question that play call, maybe question the decision. Either way, though, the pick 6 kind of sealed your fate, but he did all he could. Mario Anderson pops off the 75-yard touchdown run. Outside of that, you really didn't get anything going in the run game. It's funny, JC, you ran for over 100 yards, 4.9 yards per carry. Like, it looks really good, but 75 of it came on one play. So if you take that away, it was another typical South Carolina night on the ground. And then the schematic side of things, the play calling side of things, JC, a lot of questionable calls on 3rd and short, 4th and short. When you look at this ball game, we'll start offensively. What's your overall takeaway? I mean, do you question Dabble Loggins in the play calling? Do you go back to the offensive line? Obviously, JC, I'll admit, I like Big Tree Babalade. I like Trovon Bowe. But the second that I heard Carolina was going to have 2 true freshmen starting on the offensive line going into Neyland, any hope that I may have had of the upset, it pretty much went away, JC, because you know as well as I do, as talented as those guys are, it's not a recipe to win and win big in the SEC with true freshmen in the trenches going up against a front 7 like Tennessee presents. So looking at the Gamecocks offensively, when you look back at Saturday night, like what were your major takeaways? Were they more so personnel related or scheme related or a mixture of the two?
Well, I think obviously that you can't run Juju McDowell at the middle with this offensive line. I mean, it's just something you have to avoid. I know maybe probably in practice he's squirted through there and gotten some big gains, but it's personnel use, and the personnel use this year, Chris, has been so much better than last year. You kind of just it's hard to sit there and be overly critical, but man, I would have liked to have had Mario or TK in there. And Shane explained it. They're going tempo, so you're trying to hit them quick. And I mean, you never know. Maybe he squirts through there. They're like if they're misaligned, like Mario's big run, then Juju's taking it to the house probably. So, but I think I think with him, you have to really. And I said this last week and 2 weeks ago. I've said it every week. You really can't sit there and look at him and go, all right, well, he's number 2 this week, and this guy's number 3, and this guy's number 3, and this guy's number 2, and this guy's this, and this guy's that. You can't really consider him a true running back. He's just not equipped to do it. He's a guy that needs the ball in space. He's a guy that needs to run to the outside. I don't know why that never happens, whether it's tall sweep or outside zone or throw him a pass out there, whatever you got to do. And I thought in the first game, getting him involved in the pass game and stuff, that's his ball game. That's what he does. And so that was unfortunate. I think, DeCarrion Joyner, is as much as he continues to struggle, I would, and I said last week, well, between the 20s, Mario needs to get the ball with the carries, but DeCarrion's good inside. Yeah, he is. So maybe that's his role. Get in there and be a red zone weapon and score a bunch of touchdowns. And, it's good because that'll make some money for his charity. And he has done a good job doing that this year. But Mario Anderson's clearly running back 1. I mean, and then getting to the next part of that, we all saw the Furman game and saw Braswell get in, kind of like we did with Anderson. And I'll ask you this. Did you not look at Braswell and go, God, he's more natural carrying the ball and looks like a little better skill set than Juju or DeCarrion, right? You saw that.
Yeah, I thought, not to cut you off, I thought if anybody was going to pop this year in that room that we were going to be talking about at season's end that emerged as a surprise, I thought it was going to be Braswell. I genuinely.
Yeah.
All due respect,
look, man, he's fast.
All due respect.
He's fast enough to where when you do get a hole, he's not going to get tracked down from behind. He's gone. And look, Braswell as a prospect, he's got a little bit of tight hips. He's not a guy that's going to make you miss in a phone booth, but he's more of a natural running back than and physically equipped to do it than the other guys. Now, maybe he's been fumbling in practice. Who knows with a freshman like that? But because everybody was right after they saw Mario run it against Furman, they're looking back at that Furman game and, well, hey, look, Braswell, we were impressed with Braswell too. Where is he? And I think in the spirit of getting all your speed on the field, maybe they need to, I've said from the start, you need to coach him up, get him ready, get him out there and play him. I think there's issues at receiver to a certain extent because, yes, you have Xavier Legette, and yes, Amari and Brown. By the way, I went back and watched right before we got on his 44-yard reception early on. Chris, he's not 100% speed wise. He wasn't slow because he's not he's automatically very fast, but he that's probably one he would have housed had he been healthy. So he's probably not back yet. I didn't think Omega Blake had his best game at all. They need to get Josh Simon more involved in the passing game. I think if you have to go to double tight ends, hey, as long as Juice is out, they could do it. I agree that Harbor and Tyshawn Russell, they need to keep bringing those guys along. I think Nick Harbor is some kind of, is he going to go out there and catch 7 passes for 157 yards and 2 touchdowns? No. I think he's a guy that, he's learning the position. Like I said, he's missed a lot of time, but, he needs to get out there and play. So that's the personnel part of it. The play calling part of it, it's hard for me. I like an aggressive mindset. I think that's what Shane Beamer wants. That pick 6 was a product of that. I didn't think it was just a terrible pass. I think if you kind of look at it, he had a guy, it just kind of maybe slipped or something. I don't mind that. I mean, because I think as good as Tennessee is and as much as Carolina wasn't stopping them, you still need to be aggressive there. And look, it's damned if you do, damned if you don't, because they run it up the middle and milk the clock. And then, as Beamer says, all of a sudden Tennessee's punt returner goes for 30 yards. They set up a field goal and go up 2 scores. They're going to be questioned about that too. I would have liked to have seen them attack the middle of the field more, whether that was getting Simon more involved, whatever reason. I think that's kind of how they beat the Vols last year. It's how a lot of teams, move it up and down the field on them. I don't know what the deal is with that. And then, I think that at some point, if you're down with Loggins, you have to just admit, man, look, run game, my friend Tony Morrell that works on the Big Spur with me, he answers questions every day from the fans. And whenever there's a player that's not going to play, that maybe was highly rated that people want to ask about all the time, he answers. Whatever you get out of him is a bonus. I think whatever you get out of the run game is a bonus. I think you just, pound Mario, but you can't sit there and try to establish that and count on that. Balance is great, and balance is fine, but there are just some teams that are not built to be, 50-50. This team is built to be a pass-happy offense, and I think you just got to admit it and go for it, and make sure that that's what you do. You just got to go out there and attack downfield and throw the ball. And then, hey, you get Mario going. If you get the defense to kind of back off or whatever, great. He's certainly capable. But I just don't, I think running the ball, is going to be a challenge all year. You do have to find creative ways to do it, keep running Spencer, whatever. But this notion of achieving balance it's probably just not going to happen, and you're probably just kind of wasting your time. I'd like to see him. If there's anything I'd like to see is more of a wide open type of 70-30 type passing attack.
Now, JC, switching sides of the ball, when it comes to the Gamecocks defense, in game, JC, I felt like I was far less critical of that side of the ball than most others out there, just because I went in this game. I was asked last week, and I forget who it was who asked me, but I was asked, how many points does South Carolina have to score to win this football game? I said 35. I always saw this being an offensive shootout, even with the questions with Milton and Tennessee. Like, it's a Josh Heupel offensive scheme, and South Carolina's not trotting some, elite defense out there. Call it for what it is. Always thought this was going to be a shootout. If you look at the game, you take that pick six away. Correct me if I'm wrong. South Carolina's defense held Tennessee to 34 points. So right at 35 was the number. So I wasn't quite as critical and as hard on Clayton White and the defense in the moment. With that being said, you go back, you look at the numbers, 238 yards rushing. I thought you did a decent job defending Milton. You got 2 interceptions off of him. But when you look at the numbers, JC, I'm in a position where I'm not the one leading the charge, calling for any sort of changes or, like you said, completely scrap it after 5 games and start anew. But I'm also, JC, not going to blame anyone who does that, because I think I saw you guys on you guys' show yesterday talking about this. When does it change? Because at some point, it's just the same thing over and over and over again. And again, you guys mentioned this. You sold out against Mississippi State to stop Woody Marks and make Will Rogers beat you. And give him credit, he did. But against a quarterback that I don't think Joe Milton is on Will Rogers' level, at least not yet. He hasn't proven that. The game plan, it seemed it changed when it should have been copy and paste. Your thoughts on the defense? Because, again, like I mentioned, during that ball game, I felt offensive shootout. You got to outscore them. I'm not coming with the same energy to the defense, but I understand why people are, because you look at the numbers at the bottom of the league. It's year 3 of Clayton White. You're getting beat the same ways as you have been the first 2 years. I understand the frustration. Like, where is your frustration level with the defense right now?
Well, when you're not getting turnovers, they're just giving up yards and points. That's been the whole thing. They've been good, and they got 2 the other night, but the first one was in a critical moment. The second one was just to save the day for the blowout or whatever. And good job by Kilgore. Look, I think, and I don't know that it's necessarily schematic. Like, I don't know that the scheme itself, the 4-2-5, whatever, you look at his playbook, I don't think you're sitting there going, oh, this thing's never going to work. I think opposing coaches, and people have to realize in the SEC and whoever you play, they have coaches too. I mean, they're sitting there watching film too. I think opposing coaches have done a tremendous job of figuring out weaknesses and attacking it and exploiting it. And what you have to do is counter and mask. I don't think South Carolina does a good job of that. I do question why not. I mean, hey, you just had a banner day against the run. Will Rogers, yeah, he beat you deep. Griffin beat you deep. Tennessee does have talent at receiver. I mean, Joe Milton, though, you start, selling out top of the run, getting a lot of people up around the line of scrimmage, sacking, putting pressure on him. It's a lot different than Will Rogers down the field. Excuse me. And so I have to question the game plan there. I mean, it's they weren't playing Hendon Hooker like they were last year. You're playing Joe Milton, and Milton wasn't all that good, for Saturday night. I thought, he completed some here and there, but make no mistake, you look at Tennessee this season, and it's those backs that kind of make that offense go, and that offensive line. And, sometimes they flat out block Carolina, but a lot of times too, you probably would have liked to have seen some of the stunts and the things that, were successful against Mississippi State, sort of, limiting that. And it's just, wrong guess, I guess. I would, I think there still needs to be, with this defense, more chances taken in critical times. If you get beat, you get beat. Turn it back over to your offense. But it certainly wasn't that way Saturday night. And getting gassed on the ground like that, that's got to stop. And here's another thing, Chris. With the exception of Clemson last year, which Clemson had 30 points in the game, but they had 9. Defensive touchdown and a safety. Obviously, 9. Their defense scored 9. When was the last time South Carolina was giving up less than 27 points? It's Missouri, but Missouri had the defensive staff completely fooled in the first half last year, down 17-0. A&M, and they did well with turnovers. And look, I'll give them credit. A&M and Kentucky last year, the defense kept Carolina alive, stop after stop after stop after stop. Well, where's that defense? I mean, who's missing off that defense that, you can point to and go, well, they really miss him. I don't know there is anybody. So,
and I hate to be that guy to poke holes in it too, though, JC. But I mean, you look at A&M was a dumpster fire, and Kentucky, you have to admit, didn't have their quarterback. So
they didn't have Will Levis.
You just have to throw that in the convo.
So it's been that long. I mean, since we've seen, a good defense, that's not giving up bunches of yardage and points. And so at some point you got to look at the trend line. I mean, Notre Dame, I mean, look, and you can excuse some of it. I can, Tennessee, I thought last year the defense gave up 38 and 400, 500 yards, but who cares? I mean, they won the game. I mean, they got stops. If you stopped that bunch at all last year, you were doing well. And certainly, they deserve a lot of credit for the Clemson game. The defense and special teams won that thing for Carolina. But yeah, in Notre Dame, you could look at that and go, well, they have a lot of injuries. Well, North Carolina, I mean, Drake May's a good player, but not exactly a juggernaut, offensively. from year to year. Furman, the first half, Furman found that little slant pattern, and they were killing them, and they didn't adjust to the second half. Georgia was able to make after a great first half of defense by Carolina. Kind of a bend but don't break, but got some critical sacks, and they're putting pressure on Carson Beck. Mike Bobo adjusts, and then boom, 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 it's over. And then you look at what happened against Mississippi State, scoring 30. Kind of bombs away with them, and then of course Tennessee. So when's it going to get better? Florida is very limited offensively. So if you can't go stop them, that's not going to be. It's not at home at Williams-Brice, at Willie B. After what they did to you last year, it's going to get ugly. And I'm not advocating for change. I'm not saying fire Clayton White or whatever. I do think there are some, but are there things coaching wise to be critical of? Absolutely. I mean, you can't just say it's all on the players, or we're injured, or we're young. I mean, especially on defense, because the youngest player you've got is balling, Jelon Kilgore. I mean, I fail to see the youth, and I will say depth on defense is an issue, but I mean, how do you say depth, Chris, when you give up a 44-yard touchdown run on the first drive of the ball game? I mean, that's not depth. That's them beating you. So, I don't have the pitchforks out. I don't feel as strongly about it as I did Marcus Satterfield last year, obviously, because I think I wanted him going after game 2. But is it fair to criticize Clayton White? Certainly.
JC, last thing before we get you out of here, we enter into the bye week. Top priority for the Gamecocks to get corrected. This is a week of self-scouting. This is a week of self-evaluation. This is a week of getting back to the fundamentals. This is a week of resting and healing and mending up, if you will. But top priority for South Carolina, what they need to accomplish over the bye week to go into Florida and hit the ground running these last 7 games.
Evaluate your personnel top to bottom. Evaluate what you're doing. Get some guys ready. Honest to God, the running back situation, we've talked ad nauseum about it. You have one answer. I think you need to go give the young guy a shot, and all that, because it can't get any worse. Juice Wells' health obviously is a priority. It's a different offense when he's out there. I think it's a good passing offense when he's not out there. I think it's a great one when he is. Get Amari in healthy. Start coaching up your young receivers, and then on defense, man, it's just figure out what you want to do. I mean, because I think, Chris, if I were Shane Beamer, I'd say, look, where's our strength? Passing offense is obviously the strength of the team right now. We're going to go out and throw it around the yard and freaking live or die with it, get runs when we can, be creative, play like our hair is on fire, like there's no tomorrow. I think the offense the last 2 weeks has been a little bit restrictive, to be honest, when the idea of, trying to establish the run. Well, throw that out the window. You're not going to. You may have a game where you run for some yards, but you need to, to play to your strengths. And defensively, look, man, if you got to sell out to stop the run and gamble and blitz and do all this stuff and get creative to try to get a pass rush, to try to fix the weaknesses you've clearly had for 3 years, I think you got to do it. I mean, Clayton White's defense at Western Kentucky, man, you watched it. And even early on at South Carolina, it was not this restrictive kind of thing that got gashed. It's very creative. You send pressure. You didn't know where he's coming from. Do that, because, look, if you're going to go down swinging. I mean, that's what happened last year, and you saw what happened. So, and I think, hopefully you get healthy. The TJ Sanders thing was probably bigger than we thought Saturday night, because I think he's playing lights out better than both Boogie and Tonka. But when he's in there playing well, it helps Boogie and Tonka, because they kind of go 3. I mean, you need to get Elijah Davis ready. You need to get JT Gear ready to go. You got to get I don't know why Drew Tuizama didn't travel, but it's probably because he's not practicing very well. Get that guy ready. I mean, that's a guy you held out on for the portal for a while, and go into this next phase of the season and get after it. I mean, it's going to be one of those things where if you don't, if you're going to get lit up, and it's going to end up being a third-year dip, which I don't think anybody wants. I think right now this team can get to a bowl, can get to 7-5 with the schedule and with all the issues they've had. Great. And then if you're Shane Beamer, you reevaluate your program. And I think you also have to reevaluate the injury situation. Now, everybody wants to blame strength coaches for that, but there's been probably 3 or 4 strength coaches here for the last how many years, and same results with injuries. So maybe it's another part of your program you got to take a look at. I don't know. I mean, that's kind of above my pay grade, but that's what I do. That's a long checklist and a lot to get done, along with everybody getting rest and refocusing. But you got to refocus, because that Florida game's everything. If you lose that one, things are going to start. The wheels are going to start to come off. Kind of like last week, if Clemson had lost to Syracuse, I told everybody wheels are going to come off up there, and then they didn't. They responded and played well against the team they should beat, and South Carolina should beat Florida. So they got to get ready and go play ball next Saturday.
JC Shurburtt of Inside the Gamecocks of the Big Spur, crushing it as always. JC, appreciate you taking the time, my friend. We'll do it again next week.
All right. Thanks, Chris.
Okay, guys, that was our friend JC Shurburtt of Inside the Gamecocks of the Big Spur. We'll jump into one final break. On the other side, we'll close out the show in style here on a Tuesday. All that and more. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is brought to you by our friends at Carolina Cigars. Carolina Cigars has been in operation since 2008, recently taken over by the Peterson family in 2020. Whether you're new to the cigar scene or whether you've been enjoying cigars your entire life, Carolina Cigars has the expertise and knowledge to make your visit to their shop enjoyable. Stop by for a fine cigar and experience their classic cigar lounge, where people come together, share conversations, and become friends. So if you're into cigars and you're on Hilton Head Island, you really do need to go by and see them. They offer same-day shipping nationwide, free delivery island-wide for weddings and all special occasions. They're also proud to offer premium cigars at 9 outside humidor locations around Hilton Head Island, and they have special events throughout the year as well. They want to talk to you. They want to engage. They want to share with you their cigar selection they're very proud of and their beautiful cigar lounge. When you're in the Low Country, there's only one place for cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, and there's only one place I get my cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, Hilton Head Island's premier cigar merchant. Come and share your passion. It's all here at Carolina Cigars. Give them a follow on Instagram at Carolina_cigars, or give them a call today at 843-681-8600. That's 843-681-8600. Smoke them if you got them, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya. The Daily Crow is also brought to you by our friends over at A1 Air Quality Consultants. Headaches, coughing, running nose, while in the office or just in your home, call A1 Air Quality Consultants to have your air checked today. From Columbia to Asheville, Anderson to Charlotte, they are your breath of fresh air for all of your air quality needs. Be sure to give them a call or shoot them a text today at 864-619-2092. That's 864-619-2092. You can also contact them via email at a1airqualityconsultants@gmail.com. Be sure to check them out. We thank A1 Air Quality Consultants for their love and support of the Spurs Up Show, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya.
Muscle Dougie, ho.
Ladies and gents, boys and girls, welcome back here on this Tuesday, October the 3rd, 2023. As we close out the show here on this Tuesday, guys, no Marc Ryan today. We had a mix-up on the time, if you will, when Marc was able to come on. So no Marc Ryan, so some of you got your wish. But appreciate JC Shurburtt, appreciate all of our guests, obviously making time to come on the show. And wanted to make sure we get their thoughts and their opinions and their commentary as we head into the bye week. And guys, as we do close out the show, because we are going to close it out here now, I'll just say this going into bye week. The bye week serves as a time for reflection, for self-evaluation, self-scouting, if you will, and figuring out a plan on how to improve upon what you've done to this point and leave the mark that you want to leave on the 2023 season or whatever season it might be. And that is exactly what Shane Beamer and company are going to do over this course of the bye week. The only reason that you would fret or panic at this current juncture, right? I'm not going to say it's not justified to have concerns, but you can choose to look at it as the season's over after 5 games, or you can view it as South Carolina has an opportunity yet again in the next 7 to go on a run like it did last year. And when the dust settles on this season, we shall see. We shall see what occurs. But from the fan side of things, Gamecock fans, do yourself a favor. Use this bye week. Take a deep breath. A little bit of woosah, whatever you need. Get your mind off it. And come back from the break ready to shake Williams-Brice Stadium. A lot of football left to be played. The sky is not falling. The sky is not falling on Gamecocks football, guys. Not yet. Not yet. Keep perspective. Keep that in mind. And it's going to go one of two ways, guys. We'll either find out Shane Beamer is the guy or he is not. But I'll leave you with this, too. I'll leave you with this. Folks are irked, irritated, angst in year 3. What's the rush with Shane Beamer? What's the rush? Why does Shane Beamer have to have this thing turned around, winning double-digit games by year 4? By year 5? Guys, it's weird, honestly, to see Gamecock fans up in arms about a 2-3 start and South Carolina likely on their way to a 6-6 or 7-5 finish. Guys, why should that be a fireable offense for Shane Beamer? Shane Beamer's doing nothing that has not been done for 100 plus years in Columbia, South Carolina. And guys, knock, knock. I hate to tell you this, but the reason why it's Beamer ball to the moon, and I'm so excited about Shane Beamer, and I was when he was hired, is I felt like he could be the guy. Because he took over a program, and until we see differently, guys, brace yourselves. This is the reality. South Carolina is a 6-6 or 7-5 football program. And there are plenty of numbers that back that up. So why is Shane Beamer only getting 3 years to do the unthinkable? Why is he only getting 3 years to do what some would say is the impossible? Because South Carolina is not a 10-win per year program. That's what's weird to me. The energy from some Gamecocks that they think picking 10 wins is like nothing. When has Carolina done that in your lifetime? Gamecocks football had a 4-year run under Steve Spurrier. They won back-to-back Outback Bowls under Lou Holtz and had a 10-win season in 1984. Guys, outside of that, Carolina football has been mediocre at best. A 6-win program, 500 program. And so until we see it actually take place on the field, that's what this program is. 6-6, 7-5. So some of you that have this misconception of what Gamecocks football is, you need to take the bye week, take a moment to look in the mirror and reflect and understand what it is. I'm not saying this in a negative way, but I think it's people's misconceptions about what the program is and where it is. Like, I think those Tennessee and Clemson wins got people a little bit sideways. And I respect wanting to see South Carolina be there. I do too. Everyone does. But winning at South Carolina is a task unlike any other out there, man. And I know that gets exhausting to say, but it is. And there's over 100 years of context to support that argument. And guys, let's call it for what it is. You're not a Gamecock because South Carolina is the most successful program. You're not. And so even if you're like Coach Ford or you're somebody else who just relishes on the opportunity to complain on a day in, day out basis, you're still going to show up. You're still going to rock the block. See, you're still going to listen to podcasts and shows, and you're still going to be wearing garnet and black on game day. So is Shane Beamer the guy? Is he the answer to get South Carolina to 10 or 11? I don't know, guys. I don't know if he's the answer in regards to that. But being out on Beamer or starting to chatter about his job after 5 games in year 3 it's very, very goofy energy. If you want my honest opinion, it's very goofy energy. It's energy that does, and I'm a critical SOB to a point that pisses people off. But Shane Beamer was never a 3-year fix, guys. When Shane Beamer was hired with 0 head coaching experience, was never a quick fix. It was never. Now, if Carolina goes 5-7 or 4-8, hey, we're having a different convo of what year 4 means or what year 5 means. Like, there needs to be progress, right? It comes down to wins and losses on the field. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that it doesn't. I would just caution folks, don't jump the gun too quickly because, again, we have seen South Carolina football. They've done this song and dance, as frustrating as it is. 2-3 right now stinks, but 5 of the last 7 are at home. And Carolina has been a different team on the home field. So, take that to the bye week, guys. Take that to the bye week, right? Take that into the bye week. That the sky's not falling. Things are dark right now and gloomy and in disarray. But this is Shane Beamer we're talking about. The same Shane Beamer that upset Tennessee and Clemson. The same Shane Beamer that beat Kentucky on the road and Texas A&M. And, you know, I will not be, I'll tell you this. This season might end up 5-7. God forbid 4-8. I don't know. It might go off the rails. I don't know. I have no idea. But I will not be surprised at all if South Carolina hits that 7-5 that I predicted over the summer. Will not be surprised in the slightest. Because Shane Beamer has a way of surprising us. So I say all that simply to say, yes, the Tennessee loss sucked. Yes, things have not gone the way we'd like. And yes, you should hold those in charge accountable. You should be critical because you know what? That's your power as a fan, and I support the hell out of that. The beauty is in the banter, and pressure makes diamonds. Pressure exposes who you really are. So, not trying to pump sunshine and rainbows, but I'm also not being doom and gloom. Right down the middle. Some major issues have to get fixed. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. So, an important second half, an important next 7 games upcoming after the bye week. Great opportunity for the fan base to reset. And again, guys, you think about it. 5 of the last 7 at home. We talked about the importance of home field advantage. I mean, Willie B needs to be shaking all 5 games to give South Carolina that edge and that advantage they need to make sure they close out this season with a bang. So, guys, with that being said, thank you all so much for tuning in. Appreciate each and every single one of you. By the way, a birthday shout out to our friend Austin Gregory of the Big Cock Club. Austin, appreciate you and hope you enjoy your birthday. Also, guys, be sure to hit the subscribe button on YouTube. Hit that bell icon so you get notifications of when we go live. We drop new video content as well. Also, hit that subscribe button on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast. We're dropping the podcast daily, of course. Remember, guys, no TDC tomorrow, Thursday, or Friday. We will reconvene next Monday. Still, content being dispersed on social media. Be sure to get your merch orders in by tomorrow so you have those for the Florida game. And, of course, also, guys, we'll be selling merchandise at the Florida game outside of Williams-Brice Stadium. All that being said, guys, appreciate you all tuning in. Thank you all so much. Enjoy your bye week and enjoy the rest of the day, and we will talk to you all next week.